It is the time. It is the time to start. My name is Ross Henley. I'm chairman of the Constitution and Governance Committee. I do apologise about wearing the one glove at the moment. It's just I've got a skin complaint. Will take it off. I'm not, for those of a certain age, setting up a one-man Alvin Stardust fan club. But that's just only people of a certain age will understand that joke. But we'll move on swiftly. Welcome, welcome everybody. The members of the public, if there are any, who are joining us today, but there are from Castle Carey and Ansford. And just wanted to give you prior notice. The next meeting on Constitution and Governance is on Thursday, 7th of May, which is a seminal birthday for myself. So cake will be provided by my good self. So make sure you get in for that one. A rare treat, I can tell you. That is, it's absolutely, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Yes, anyway, welcome everybody. Today's meeting will run using the webcasting system via Microsoft Teams. Committee members and key officers are physically present in the Lux room, which is here, of course, you've all made it, at the County Hall in Taunton. Other elected members of the public and officers are may physically or remotely join the meeting to speak on specific agenda items or observe the whole meeting or part of the meeting. The meeting is being webcast and therefore other members of the public and partners can observe the meeting remotely. The agenda pack is available via ModGov on the council website or directly from the council website from the link which has been sent out to members. And I advise those present I've got to do that the meeting has been audio recorded, so I hope nobody has a problem with that. And as agendas now are quite rightly viewed electronically, could I kindly request that members and officers refer to page numbers for the published agenda pack to assist all present in finding the appropriate information? It really does help. Item number 1 is apologies for absence, and we have 3 apologies for absence. We have Councillor Helen Kay. I was led to believe it was going to be substituted by Councillor Mansell no longer, yes? Okay, so no substitute for Helen Kay now. Councillor Sue Osborne, who we wish well. She's taken a leave of absence for health reasons at the moment, so wish Sue well. And she's been substituted by Norman Cavell. And Councillor Emily Pearlstone, it's been substituted by Councillor Ewan Cameron. Ewan, your very first meeting of the Constitution and Governance Committee, yeah. And I've just shared with Ewan before, and the last time you and I met was the day before his by-election in the Morrison's car park. We were furtively handing leaflets over to each other, but this is a much more salubrious establishment than well, nothing wrong with Morrison's car park. But anyway, here we are. You're most welcome for your first meeting of Constitution and Governance. And we move swiftly on to item. There are no further apologies, are there? Nobody wants to apologise for being here? No. Item number 2 is the minutes of the previous meeting, which took place on the 4th of December. And to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on that date, and if agreed, the chair will sign, that's me, will sign the minutes to the correct record. Do we have anybody wishing to propose this as a correct record of what took place on the 4th of December? Councillor Buck Phillips, seconded by Councillor Pugsley. All those in favour? That is carried. And moving swiftly on then to item number 3, declarations of interest. Members will be invited to declare any interest regarding any matters on the agenda, and to specify the nature of that interest, the chair will highlight to the meeting the standard declarations of panel members in relation on their membership of town councils, parish councils, which are always published on the council's website. Anybody wish to declare anything else which is not already duly published on the council's website? Okay. Item number 4 then is public question time. Now there are 4 public statements. What I wish to do here is we're not going to I wanted to bring the item forward at number 5, which is about the community governance review about Ansford and Castle Carey parishes. So what I want to do is move that item forward to the next item, and then the public questions. I'll invite Steve Lake, our head of electoral management, to make a statement, introduce the report, and then at that point I'll invite the 4 public speakers to speak one at a time for 3 minutes each. Are members quite happy with that approach? Yeah. Seems most sensible, doesn't it? Thank you. We've got members in the hall, in the room, so we give them ample opportunity to do their speaking quite early. So we move forward then. We're going to encompass 4 and 5 in together. So number 5, Community Governance Review, Ansford and Castle Carey. Steve Lake. Welcome, Steve. You're our head of electoral management. Can you please introduce your report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report is based on the responses we received to the consultation which arose from 2 petitions, and this is a response to the issues which are in those 2 petitions. One which came from electors of Castle Carey, the other which came from the electors of Ansford. And I've given a sort of brief summary in a report, and the whole report, which has been put together by the council's communications team, which dealt independent of myself for the whole of the consultation period. So they produced this report and they carried out the consultation on the council's behalf. So I've only highlighted the key elements, but by all means read the whole report because it's a very interesting, I think, well put together response. So from that, I've come to the conclusion that actually the responses were inconclusive because the community interests and identities are different from each of the two parishes. The responses from Castle Carey were very much in favour. The responses from Ansford were very much opposed. For that reason, I don't think at this stage I can recommend to you to proceed with the complete, let's call it merger of the two parishes. But I'm suggesting that at least for now, we should change the boundaries between the two parishes simply because they go through buildings at the moment, and that is not good for clear local government. In particular, I'm suggesting that we move 57 to 67 Churchfield Drive from Castle Carey to Ansford, and also Venus Cottage and Step Aside, which are in the same little area which is shown on the map, from Castle Carey to Ansford. That clears up that particular area, and people know which parish they're in, because currently one or two are a bit dubious because it goes through the house. The other change suggested, it doesn't affect anything financially, but the current line goes through the cat food factory. It doesn't make any sense, and so we should be looking to have a well-defined permanent boundary. And I'm suggesting perhaps the middle of the railway is unlikely to move in the near future, but also I've had to put it down a footpath just to make sure there is an existing boundary there. So, Chairman, that's the background to the report, and I think you will hear from the residents of the parishes exactly their views.
Much also, Stephen, very concise, interesting report. I'm going to invite the public speakers to speak in this following order. Number one, Summer Eastman. Summer Eastman, would you like to come up to the lectern? You do have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Okay, thank you. You're most welcome. Yes. Let's find anything here.
Yes, I'll start again. Sorry, I apologise. I knew I'd do something wrong. As the youngest mum of Ansford Parish Council and as a disabled, did I just say the youngest mum? Youngest member of Ansford Parish Council and as a disabled mum. Very sorry, very nervous. And social housing tenant, I want to explain why dissolving this council would be a serious loss for our community. I joined the council because I've seen firsthand what constructive, committed local representation can achieve. Before becoming a councillor, I worked with residents on my estate to challenge problems with our housing association, and I watched Ansford councillors step up, visit people in their homes, listen properly, and help secure real solutions. That experience showed me what effective local democracy looks like, and it's the reason that I felt encouraged to stand. Ansford Parish Council has consistently demonstrated what can be achieved when we work collaboratively and base our decisions on evidence. Because of our constructive relationship with Somerset Council and local developers, and because we invested in proper evidence-based reports, we now have the prospect of 3 zebra crossings being delivered in Ansford. That's not abstract policy, that's safer routes for children, older residents, disabled people and families, and it's exactly the kind of practical, community-driven outcome that only a functioning parish council can deliver. Residents do notice this. After our last meeting, a young parishioner new to the area and unknown to councillors posted it publicly. I was at the parish meeting last night. Our councillors are brilliant, genuinely impressed by how on top of everything they are, properly engaged and clearly working hard for the community. It's easy to take this stuff for granted, but we are lucky to have such a competent bunch looking out for the parish. That kind of unsolicited feedback reflects the reality of what it is that this council is achieving. Dissolving our council would silence a vital local voice at the very moment when our community has proven that what it can achieve. Instead of giving up on local democracy, we should be strengthening it, encouraging new members, widening participation and building on the progress we've already made. I'm committed to doing that work, and I'm asking you to give this council and the people who rely on it the chance to continue delivering in Ansford. Thank you. Do I turn the microphone off?
Gosh, I really enjoyed that. It's lovely to see somebody young and passionate and really caring about their local community and to stand and put herself forward for a parish council. So well done. Speaker is Fiona Holton.
Thank you. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. We acknowledge the work officers have put into preparing this report. The purpose today is simple: to ensure the committee fully recognises the clear, evidence-based position of Ansford residents. I expect there's been lobbying by our unitary representatives who organised the petition. I would respectfully ask you to set that aside and focus on the evidence before you. There are also important differences between this case and Langport and Hewish Episcopi. The nature of community identity, the strength and clarity of opposition, the response rates and the demographic profile are all materially different. Those distinctions matter when applying the statutory test. For Ansford, the consultation was conclusive. The small population of Ansford submitted the largest number of responses. Their message was consistent and emphatic. Residents raised concerns about a precept increase with no tangible benefit, concerns about losing their voice and identity, and concerns about transparency and fairness in the process. These issues go directly to the statutory requirement that governance arrangements must reflect local identity and interests. The headline figure of 53% support across both parishes is misleading. 65% of Ansford respondents opposed the proposal, a decisive rejection. And because 23% of Ansford's population responded, compared with only 7% in Castlecarry, the strength and clarity of Ansford's opposition carries significantly more democratic weight. The committee cannot disregard the community with the largest stake and the clearest view. Demographic evidence strengthens this position. Younger residents, particularly those aged 25 to 49, were the most opposed. Ansford is getting younger, with significant numbers of new housing and many families moving in. Proceeding now would create a long-term legitimacy problem by acting against the views of the very residents who will shape the parish's future. The proportionate, evidence-led way forward is boundary clarification. Ansford Parish Council supports the officer's recommendation not to proceed with a merger, and we support exploring clearer, more logical boundaries where appropriate. This respects both communities and avoids unnecessary conflict. So we ask the committee to accept the consultation evidence, recognise that the statutory test for merger has not been met, and proceed only with the recommended boundary-focused consultation. Ansford Parish Council remains committed to constructive partnership with all stakeholders, grounded in consent, clarity and respect for identity. We now look forward to refocusing our time on our parishioners. Thank you.
Very much, Fiona. Thank you. Simon Bevington.
Good afternoon, Simon Bevington. I'm a resident of Castlecarry and have lived there for 25 years. I'm also a member of the single community that comprises Ansford and Castlecarry. I've been aware of an ongoing situation that has developed concerning Castlecarry Town Council and Ansford Parish Council. Historically, both settlements were individual communities, but the extension and ongoing development taking place has effectively blurred the boundaries and made them a single natural community. What makes a community? Many things, but an example of how it works in Ansford and Castlecarry was an event last year when the Lord Lieutenant visited to celebrate volunteering in the community. Admittedly, this was held in the Market House, the centre of Castlecarry, but, and this is a big but, there were almost 40 charities and volunteering groups represented. And where were those volunteers from? Were they residents of Castlecarry or were they residents of Ansford? Were the groups based solely in Carey or Ansford? Of course not. They were very ordinary yet extraordinary people from the single community, that is Ansford and Castle Carey. Looking at finances, currently residents pay 2 different precepts for 2 separate sets of administrative costs. A single council requires only 1 clerk, 1 set of audits, 1 insurance policy and 1 website. These administrative savings can be reinvested directly into local projects rather than bureaucracy. A unified council would represent nearly 3,000 electors. This larger voice carries more weight when bidding for national lottery funding, developer contributions such as Section 106, or government grants for projects like the Donald Pither Pavilion. There is concern about financial hardship for increased precept to Ansford residents, but surely this can be managed over a period of time, seeing only a small annual increase, not one big lump sum. Division often leads to boundary disputes regarding who pays for shared assets. Maintenance of parks, footpaths and community spaces that sit on the boundary often lead to delays while both councils negotiate who is responsible. Major issues such as pedestrian safety and traffic involve both parishes. A single council would address the whole community and allow for a holistic approach to town-wide traffic and transport problems and their solutions. With the move to a unitary authority, i.e. Somerset Council, power is moving further away from small towns and villages. Strategic voice. A single larger town council is a more formidable partner for Somerset Council. It ensures that Castle Carey and Ansford are not picked off individually, but stand as a unified block in negotiations over local service devolution. Clarity for residents. Residents often don't know which council to contact for specific issues. A single point of contact simplifies local democracy and increases engagement. To address local concerns, particularly the Save Ansford sentiment, the amalgamation should be framed as not as a takeover by Castle Carey Town Council, but the creation of a new and equal partnership. The new council should be named Ansford and Castle Carey Council to ensure both identities are preserved in the title, while a warding system could be designed to guarantee a specific number of seats for representatives living in both areas. Thank you.
Very much, Simon. And final speaker on this subject, public speaker, is Trevor Oates.
Yeah, good afternoon. I won't take that long, don't worry. Historically, there's been a debate about how the local community is represented for decades. Questions have always been there on how this has been achieved in order for everyone to have an equal voice. As the time increased, the material assets on which the council has to offer their residents created a historical 60-6-33 split on joint financial costs. With the advent of Castle Carey taking on further assets, there was an increase in separation of the precept sums. More recently, the moving of services and responsibilities have created an increase, most notably 3 years ago, which laid a heavy burden on Castle Carey Town Council. The precept in Castle Carey Town Council is more vulnerable to increase due to the low number of parishioners in relation to assets. Likewise, the Section 106 and SIL payments must be used effectively as possible to focus on the need of the whole community, as it is everyone who is able to access these facilities and events. Ansford and Castle Carey Neighbourhood Plan set out the desired approach to many items, but it was true to say the focus of this historic and commercial areas, which are mostly situated in Castle Carey. We have established projects highlighted in the joint community questionnaire, and these items are there due to it being one community. I will reflect on the findings of the reports highlighted. It should be for everyone. The consumption of facilities should be for everyone, and the need to let members of our community partake in that process. As the present chair of Castle Carey Town Council, I can see great merit in the formation of a new council to move forward and start to focus on the needs and wants of everyone, and not to be continually being accused of not paying heed to our parishioners of of Ansford. All the new council parishioners will have equal access to elect the members who they wish to represent them and enjoy the services that will be provided across the whole community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you. Turn my microphone on. That's breaking my own rules as always. They've all fully enunciated very well the thoughts and issues very clearly from your perspective, and that does really, really help the committee. And thank you for your attendance and your participation. And together, the officers' report, when it carefully considers the matter which is of great importance to the electors of both parishes, something obviously you're very clearly very, very passionate about. The committee's proposal from today's meeting will form the basis of a second round of public consultation and a further report to this committee before any final decision is made. What I'm going to open it up to is that open it up to committee members and other members of the council who are here who wish to speak as well. Who would like to go first?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, having had a look at this one, I think it looks to me that it suits the governance for them to come together. But we have to accept that we need to take the public with us on the journey. Having sat through a similar one in Langport and Hewish, I see the arguments are pretty much the same. I just think the difference here is the local population haven't been taken with the argument, and I think we have to respect that. So for me as an aspiration, it still, to me, looks the sensible thing to bring the two together. However, it has to be the right of the people to decide that for themselves. Thank you, Chair.
I didn't see Henry sat at the back there. I said earlier, where's Henry? Henry was hiding. Come forward, Henry. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed. I've represented Castle Cary and Arnsford for the last 20 years. Up until 2023, they were working together. They used to meet regularly every 2 months, and things were done jointly. So we had a community survey, which Mr. Lake has received and will report back if he wishes to. But one of the questions in that survey was, do you wish to join the two parish councils together? And the actual survey results were 250 in favour and 50 against. The two parishes have funded the village hall called the Caryford Hall, and they've been funding the Fun on the Field, the Fairfield is the correct name, and they funded the paid for by the town and parish council car parking in Castle Cary to protect the high street. All of this joint funding was done on the basis 2/3 Castle Cary, 1/3 Arnsford. And while that situation was in place, I was very happy to leave everything together. But we have a single community. As Mr. Lake will be telling you, we have a boundary between the two parishes, which goes through the middle of a house, down a cul-de-sac. And those are all going to have to be moved today, if you take the recommendation, because you can't have the boundary of a parish going through a house. And they are completely and utterly interlocked with each other, if that makes some sort of sense. Very happy if anyone, Mr. Chairman, wants to ask me any questions. I just wanted to explain where I was coming from.
Very much, Henry. Councillor Martin Wale.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This, I say, the one we did previously has been mentioned, but I think we ought to deal with this as it is in front of us. And we've heard the arguments from both sides, but I haven't heard anything that would make me want to go against the officer's recommendation. You have to be specific and precise if you're going to do that, and I don't think you can do it on this occasion. I think the report has been well put together. The figures are there in front of us. They've been explained by some of the objectors to the plan, and they are self-evident. And I'm always open to a reasonable suggestion, but I don't think we can go against the officer on this occasion. And if you allow me, Chairman, I would like to suggest and recommend and propose that that is the action this committee takes. And one other thing, if I may say so, the argument that they're next door to each other and they've grown in each other is all very well, but it applies to most of our towns, and Yeovil is a good example. I think they've got 3 out of Yeovil and Yeovil with and various others. My own ward of Chard North, Coombe St Nicholas abuts the boundary and will shortly be filled in with housing, which will, and there is no suggestion at all that there should take place there. So I just find the argument that because they've been built into each other now, they should go together. And the same, I am not convinced with the financial argument. And let's face it, all our parish towns are to serve the community. They're not just to serve Castle Carey or Chard or wherever it happens to be. And they rely on the people from these other communities using their facilities. So as I said, I'd like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation in this particular case, Chairman. Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to actually read out what the recommendation is. It's duly proposed here, not seconded yet. 1, that the level of support and feedback for the proposals indicated throughout the consultation be noted. 2, that as the outcome of the consultation was inconclusive, particularly with regard to reflecting community interests and identities, the Constitution and Governance Committee makes no decision at this time, but consults on possible future changes to town and parish council boundaries, which Stephen has alluded to, your officer, to provide clear and definitive boundaries between the 2 parishes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, really. I'm happy to go along with the officer's recommendation. However, I would state that I was brought up in a town nearby to Castle Carey, and having been to Castle Carey many times in the 70s and 80s, I always thought Ansford was part of Castle Carey. So I don't think the argument that they've gradually moved together is valid, because I think, in my mind, they were always one and the same place. Thank you.
Chair, I also am concerned that we've employed an officer to work out this suggestion by 2 areas, and we're going to go against his wishes, which I think is absolutely stupid. What has surprised me is what one of our colleagues here has given us more information on what happened several years ago with the 2 sites working together, etc., etc. Was the officer aware of that happy merger between the 2 then? Or was he not aware of that happening?
To clarify, Hugh, and there's simply a bit of a confusion here, because I can't prejudge what the discussion, the conclusion of this debate will be at this time. But at this time, at the moment, I think every speaker has spoken in favour of the officer's recommendation, which Stephen has made, and I haven't seen any sign yet that any members are deferring from that, but that may happen, of course. But Stephen, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you say, it's been moved that the recommendation in the report be received and approved. Yeah, and I have been aware of the history. I've met both parish councils. I've been around the 2 parishes for a couple of days and talked to other people. So yeah, I'm aware of the history, and the local member has provided me with a lot of background information.
Yeah, if I just come in on page 27 of the agenda, we have suggested practical opinions for going forward. It looks like we are erring towards retaining the two parishes. And underneath that, it says to establish a binding joint working protocol and commit to regular joint communications. I'm wondering whether we're going to allude to anything or whether Stephen has anything to say about that.
Tim, thank you very much.
That's entirely for the two parishes, Chair. It's not something that we can impose, or I think would wish to impose, because we cannot actually enforce it, even if we did try to take it up. So it's for the two parishes to work together.
Thank you for that clarification, Stephen. Members, anyone else like to comment? Then in that case, we have a proposal on the table, proposed by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Davis, that we accept the officer's recommendation, which I read out a couple of minutes ago. I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? It's carried not unanimously, but majority wise, but with one abstention. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. If you wish to, remain and watch the whole rest of the Constitution and Governance Committee, you are more than welcome. But if you want to sort of take an appropriate short time to sort of leave now, that's absolutely fine, and we'll defer for 5 minutes. Thank you. Thanks for your contributions. It was really good. I think we're all right. Martin, I think it's the last person waiting you to come back in. So members, it is 2:35, maybe 2:36. I think we can proceed after our short comfort break. Item number 6 is contract procedure rules, update supplement 1. And I'm inviting Paul Scouse, who's at his very last meeting of Constitution and Governance Committee, head of procurement, who's going to introduce the report included in supplement 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would advise that you are beating me to 60 by about 3 days, but that doesn't mean I'm going to bring in cakes for your next meeting. Sorry. So this is an update to contract procedure rules which form part of the Constitution, governing how we award contracts and go through our procurement exercises. The current version of contract procedure rules was signed off and effective from February last year when the new procurement legislation came into effect. Part of that was to advise that there would be an annual update and review of the contract procedure rules. And this is what we're bringing forward today. The second part that was agreed at that time was that a supplementary section 2 would be added to cover off the healthcare services brackets provider selection regime close brackets regulations, which is a very different piece of procurement legislation which affects mainly public health contracts. So the proposal is we make those two recommendations now, the update and the addition of part 2. Part 2 I'll cover off very quickly first, but it applies to some public health services, it applies to some care services, and it is very restricted by, we have things called common procurement vocabulary codes, and the legislation states exactly what is covered by those legislation changes. It is closely governed by a member of my team as to what is applied to the provider selection regime regulations to make sure we keep in line with what we're supposed to be doing. It is a very different piece of legislation, and to try and incorporate it into the main body of contract procedure rules would be incredibly confusing. Public health are very conversant with it. We've been working to this legislation for a couple of years. We're just formalising it into the contract procedure rules. The main change to the part 1 of these rules is really regarding something called statutory direct awards, which exist within the Procurement Act. Ideally, we'd have picked this up a year and a half ago, but we've been through massive legislation change within procurement. You learn as you go along to some extent. The main impact of this, and if I give you an example, Currently, if someone is trying to award a contract of £70,000, including VAT, they are required to go through a 4-quote process to award that contract. We have many instances where they come to us and go, we can't go through 4 quotes because there is only one supplier in this marketplace. What we then ask them to do is to complete a waiver application. That gets reviewed by procurement and legal. If it's approved, they can proceed. It is then reported to the Statutory Officers Board Working Group and the Statutory Officers Board. It is then reported to Audit Committee. It is then included in an annual waivers and breaches report that is published on a council website. What we're saying now is that if it's of that value, they can either get 4 quotes, or they can use a framework through procurement, or they can make a statutory direct award in accordance with the Procurement Act. That has to be signed off by procurement and legal to make sure it's applied correctly. That will then mean that we don't have to report it as a waiver, and it takes down a lot of committee admin, takes down a lot of procurement admin and reporting. The statutory direct awards, there are 10 reasons within the legislation as to what is covered. And it is things like there is only one supplier in the marketplace. One supplier has intellectual property. That means that we can only award to them. There's items in there about prototypes, works of art, preferential terms on bankruptcy, or any additional goods that was allowed for in an original contract. So what I'm suggesting is we're not going to be losing any control here. It is perfectly legal. Procurement and legal services will oversee the application of this to make sure that officers are doing it compliantly. But it will cut down an awful lot of work and will streamline the process. That is the main change within Part 1 of contract procedure rules, other than a few little bits of housekeeping around definitions, etc. So we've been working jointly between legal and procurement to do this. Legal services have signed it off and quite happy with it. And the proposal is that we then take this forward to full council for approval prior to it becoming part of the constitution. Very happy to take any questions.
Paul, for that very thorough explanation. Thank you. Makes sense, really, doesn't it? You think because in the marketplaces, ideally, you'd like to have a various number of different options and potential partners and providers who could give reputable quotes, but that's not always the same, really. In reality, particularly in rural areas, there may only be, as you say, 1 or 2 people, potential people you could approach to make a viable positions. Councillor John.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just wanting to check the real case that comes to you for there only being one supplier, I suppose, because that is where it could potentially become a contentious place. That
it is
one person's version of there's only one supplier might very well differ from another person's version of what's one supplier. And I was thinking of it yesterday where planning had commissioned a report, and I was thinking, did that go out to tender? Did it not go out to tender? We don't always get to know if something's gone to tender when we're discussing something. And I do think there is perhaps more information we could get as to whether a tender process has taken place sometimes. And I would like to know if it hasn't gone out to tender, what is the basis that it has been not considered a requirement. I was also, when he says it doesn't, it makes this change saves a lot of work. I'm just trying to understand exactly what work it changes, because if it's not going to become part of a waiver system, and it's going to go into this other place, and I can't remember the name of it, sorry. Is that just a list that will appear on the same audit document with a different title on it?
Okay, 3 questions in there. I'll probably try and do them in reverse order if I may. So in terms of work, at the moment, waivers reported, it's a very manual process, as some people in this committee will know. They're reported monthly to the Statutory Officers Board. There's manual work to do that, and they are then discussed at the Statutory Officers Board. They're not waivers, they don't need to be discussed. Similarly, they will go to audit committee. At the moment, it was quarterly, it's going to move to half yearly. And again, a separate report is produced for that. And then thirdly, it goes on an annual report. So again, they won't need to be reported as part of the annual waivers and breaches report. Now that will in itself, I think, put the council in a much better light because it makes us look far more compliant. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work to get all these reports done. And that's where we can cut it down. And I think apart from admin, I think it will give the sense that there's a lot more control around what we're doing. There's no need to report statutory direct awards because that's part of the legislation. It's no different to saying we awarded it under a tender. So it's streamlining it a bit, helps officers, but I think it puts the council in a much better light when it comes to annual reporting of these things.
Thank you. Just before we move on to the other things then, I'm just trying to think of public oversight, I suppose.
Yep.
And what the process, does it then, I mean, I understand what you're saying in terms of how it reflects in audits and what have you. But could there be an accusation that there are perhaps more things getting decided behind the scenes than we get to see on reports?
Sure. Any contract of over 30,000, we are required under the Act to publish a contract award notice, which is publicly available on the government website. And it's recorded in our contract register. Any spend is then published because we have to publish spend over those limits, and we have to report on spend to central government over those limits. So similarly, it doesn't bypass any of the democratic services around sign off of decisions. And again, some of those will be published depending on the value. So I don't think it's any less transparent from our point of view, and we're certainly not trying to hide anything. It's just almost like a reclassification. Yeah. Okay, can I go back to your second question at this point? And this is around, sorry, could you remind me the decision paper that you saw? You weren't clear whether it had gone out to tender. What sort of decision was it?
It was the award of technical assessment planning.
Right. Okay. If someone is awarding a contract, there should be a decision paper. If they're awarding a contract to a third party supplier, that should include how it was awarded. And if it's been through procurement, there should be procurement comments on there. And normally if it's gone through a full tender exercise, we provide an evaluation report, which documents how we've gone out to tender, and a confidential appendix that say these are the bids that we've got and the relative prices, etc. So I'd be quite concerned if someone is getting a paper of that nature that is awarding a contract to another party that hasn't said how they've done it. And as I would suggest,
I may have missed it in the papers.
No, that's all right.
I may have misreading, but I didn't see anything that said how that had been awarded in the
Right.
papers.
I would encourage all members that if it's not in the paper that's awarding a contract, they should be pushing back and asking that question. Because certainly we would advise that that should be included to give you that understanding. And the first question was about the situations for single market. Yeah, we push back on this. If we don't believe that the office has done rigorous investigation to make sure that there is any one supplier, we will push back and make sure they do it. It can be things, trying to think of examples off the top of my head. So if you are buying maintenance for fire alarms and it has to be done by the company that provided the fire alarms, otherwise you're negating the guarantee, that makes sense to say, yes, that's a single market. You don't want someone repairing something that would then negate any potential warranty on it. Similarly, there are local SMEs, perhaps in the VCSEF FSE arena, that provide very, very bespoke services that we've developed, and you need it done locally, and there is only one local supplier to do it. There might be some national suppliers, but some things you want to be local. So again, that might be a very good reason for doing it. But we do push back to make sure that the officer's given us enough evidence of rigour in justifying that there is only one supplier that can do this.
Councillor Curley, followed by Councillor Buckfield.
Well, thank you, Chair. Just from an audit perspective, I think that it's quite welcome that we're rationalising the waivers. Quite often in audit, we go through some of these waivers and think they really shouldn't be here. So I do welcome this. I think my point really with this is that this isn't going to scrutiny, is it? So I just want to be assured that all of these changes are really just in regard to changes of legislation apart from the waivers. So I'd just like some assurance on that, please, Paul.
Yes, the main part of it really is to add that section 2. The provider selection regime is in my view, a very odd piece of legislation and what it's allowing people to do. It makes awarding contracts enormously simpler. And bizarrely has no threshold on it. So technically any pound that you spend falls under that legislation. But yes, that's the two main things. There's little tidy ups of definitions, etc. in the main body. But as regards changes, those two are the changes. It's the waivers and this other legislation that we're allowing for.
Councillor Whale, you're on stage earlier than you expected.
They same answers to the question. I was just going to ask if this was the first part was really having worked the regulations, they were necessary to bring them more up to standard. And the second part, of course, is it has to be added because of the new legislation under the healthcare services, etc. But that has been answered, so I'm well satisfied. Thank you.
Very happy to move the recommendations on pages 3 and 4, Mr. Chairman.
As well, for the benefit of everybody and anybody who's not in the room. The updated part 1 is adopted with immediate effect. The part 2 is adopted as part of the existing contract procedure rules, which form part of the council's consultation with immediate effect. That's been moved by Councillor Pugsley. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Whale, all those in favour? Carried. Anybody against? No abstentions, I guess. Okay, thank you. Item number 7 is community governance reviews, various parishes. We've obviously looked at Langport and Jewish Episcopacy. We've started the process of looking at Castle Care and Ansford. But there are other parishes which are interested in this piece of work as well. So I'm going to invite Stephen Lake, again, our Head of Electoral Management, to introduce the report, including the agenda pack.
Chairman, at this point of the electoral cycle, we regularly get requests from parishes who want to change the number of parish councillors that they have. I spoke at the parish council conference last October. I wrote to all parishes asking did they want to make a change. Now is the time to do it. And 4 got back to me, and they're Ashwick, Chapel Allerton, Martle and West Monkton. And if you look on the second page, you'll see the great variance of numbers according to electorate that they currently have. And I think they're looking to get some sensible number, because in some cases they've got no chance of reaching the number of parish councillors that they have. So we have to go through a community governance review to make those changes. And I'm suggesting, Chairman, that we do exactly that. There may be other parishes who've suddenly woken up and decided that they want to do it, but it's too late now, because this is quite a long process, which is why I asked them last October and subsequently wrote to them last year to put their proposals forward. So it's just a fairly simple report, Chair, and we're unlikely to get any public objections, I think, to these changes. I've never had any in the past. So it's just to press on and go through the actual consultation procedures, which are quite heavy for quite a simple process.
Stephen, we've seen with the process for Castle Care and Jewish Episcopacy and Langport and Ansford, it's even with there's areas of public support, it's quite laborious, isn't it? There's lots of different humps to jump through for both parties. It's not a very quick process from start to finish. Any comments, members?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say that is on my declaration. I am a parish councillor on West Monkton. You might think the number 9 to 13 is a little bit of a jump, but we do have another 1,000 houses we know going to be coming in fairly rapidly behind this, and there certainly is a need for greater representation than we presently have. We're very fortunate. We've always managed to run with a full council, and we've a very active area. So it'll be great if we can have this extra numbers. Thank you.
I was just curious, Stephen, to know whether you've ever had, you've ever been minded to disagree with someone's request. Is it ever anything that we challenge, or do we just kind of accept quite graciously?
Chairman, at this point, in my view, the parishes know best what they need. This is their bread and butter stuff, and I don't think I would ever challenge if they think that they need it. I mean, I have had some bizarre instances in the past where parishes are asked to go up by 3, and then the next election is asked to come down by 3. But you know, I'm not in a position to really challenge their knowledge.
Speaker online, Bob Filmer. Hi, Bob. How are you? Most welcome.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Chair. It was just really Chapel Allerton comes under my patch, and they've been trying to get this change for a considerable time. They do struggle with quoracy sometimes due to illness or councillors being away, with only having 5 at the moment. So going up to 7 would help them. And every time they've had vacancies, they've always had more people apply than they've got space. So it's something that the parish has wanted for a long time, and your support for that would be really appreciated.
Backdrop, Bob. What is it? Is it a what is your backdrop? It's interesting. Oh, here we go. Have a story, isn't it?
You'll never know.
It's also the coast there, isn't it? Yeah, we'll never know. But answers to be revealed in the next meeting, probably. Okay, Councillor Butt-Phillip. We'll let Bob come back in if he wants to tell us where that is later.
I was wondering that last time I saw him online, actually. I was interested to hear Stephen's experience of a parish that wanted 3 extra members and then got the wrong 3 and decided to get rid of them or something. Careful what you wish for. No, for me, it's very simple. The National Association of Local Councils has a recommended, guideline recommended number of councillors per elector. And in each of the 4 instances here, the parishes are either moving to the number that is recommended by NALC or closer to the number that is recommended by NALC than they are now. So, if Chapel Allerton suddenly decided it wanted 15 councillors, it might raise some eyebrows and you might ask some questions. But actually, they want to move from 5 to 7, and NALC recommends 7, and it's a similar story with the rest. So I think it's eminently reasonable. And if it hasn't already been proposed, I'm happy to make the proposal.
At the moment, so Councillor Butt-Phillip will make the proposal. Stephen Pugsley wants to speak.
Well, I'll formally second that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. As Officer Lake knows, one of the parishes in my division, Porlock, woke up to the fact a little bit late to apply. They would like to be able to reduce the number of councillors they have, because they're, by our standards, they're a big parish, but by the numbers that we're looking at today, not so much. And their total number of parish councillors that they could have is very high in relation to the amount of interest that they regularly get. And of course, if you end up by co-opting people on a very regular basis, then that reduces your status standing as a parish council. So it's actually important for parishes to have the right numbers on the council representing the community. So I'm very much in favour of those that have applied and are doing it now, and happy to second the proposal, but just flagging up that there are others out there waiting to do the same.
And some parishes are waiting to do something even more radical as well. I think we're going to have a whole glut of these, and after the 27th election. So the proposal by Councillor Butt-Phillip, seconded by Councillor Pugsley, is that the report be considered. A request.
Chair, Councillor, I noticed Councillor Filmer has remade contact. Was there a question?
Yes. Where is that, Bob? You're with us again. You froze. Where is you were regaled and interested in your.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, sorry about that, Chairman. It's a tapestry in Brentnall Village Hall, which was done for the Jubilee by lots of local village organisations. It shows the knoll itself and lots of history and stuff that goes on in the village.
Oh, interesting. Well, they are. Thank you very much.
There's even a little illustration of me on there somewhere if you can find it.
We're going to have a look on the website and see if we can find you on there now. You've set up a real conundrum. Councillor Phillips, do you want to come back?
Yes, Chair, may I propose that in recognition of the beautiful tapestry, we award Brentnall 2 extra parish councillors.
You've heard the recommendation. It's been proposed by Theo, seconded by Stephen. All those in favour? It's carried. Yeah, look at that frozen grin. Frozen in prosperity. Look, he looks so happy. But let's freeze that. Yeah. We always want to see a happy face. A happy face forever there, Bob. Yeah. Item number 8, the Constitution and Governance Committee Work Programme, pages 41 to 42. Inviting you as committee members and other elected members that are in the room or online to comment upon the committee's work programme and recommend any suggested amendments or additions to the committee to consider. Oh, rather quiet this afternoon. I was quite shocked you wanted to speak.
Sorry, Chair, again, just to raise potentially 2 other items to be added to the to be scheduled. And again, I would just welcome the committee's views on both of these points. You'll appreciate, and you'd have seen today, that you've had a number of items relating to community governance reviews under the Constitution. However, should you ever be minded to agree to go forward with a community governance review order, you have to actually recommend it through to our full council, and our full council would have to debate and determine that. And some of you will recall that's exactly what happened back in 2022 in relation to the Taunton Town Council creation. So a number of other authorities generally put in place a delegation to a body just like this committee to not only consider the community governance reviews, but also to have the delegated authority to agree them. So again, I just welcome the committee's views. Is this something you would like officers to look at? Because your existing terms of reference do not allow you to do this. So if this is something that the committee would like to do, then officers will need to prepare some proposed revisions to your terms of reference and bring it back to this meeting ahead of the council's AGM. So that's question 1. Question 2 is in relation to elections. And again, I think that under the terms of reference, there's quite a broad reference to the role of this committee with the administration of council elections. And I think we just welcome, certainly as officers, we think there's some added value in expanding some of those references. So both of these are related to a suggestion, if this is what the committee would like, for officers on your behalf to look at revisions to this terms of reference and to bring it back to the committee for you to consider.
Can't wait to delve into this one.
Well, absolutely. I think there's 2 things to say here. I think 1, it would be great if we had ownership of our own work here. I think that we're the experts that have looked at the facts. It would be good if we made those decisions. I think the other side as well, we all recognise that sometimes full council meetings can go on for rather a long time. So anything that we can unload from full council meetings, I think is probably welcome as well. So I think there's two tracks that I support it here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I share. I'm not decrying the work of full council when there's so many other important issues to take place. An item like this could made quite small, though very important to the whole of the full council agenda. And I think, we spent the time looking at this and aware of the options when they come forward to parish council, this committee before and the consultation process. It'd be nice if we did have further powers to deliberate and make decisions on this. Councillor John.
Thank you. I just wanted to check with you, Scott, the scrutiny changes, they don't need to come to Constitution and Governance, do they, to go straight to full council? We don't need those on the agenda.
So all the changes to the council's current scrutiny arrangements have now been approved by full council in full, including the transition from 5 committees to 4. So all those approvals have already been made by effectively the parent body in this instance, which was full council.
And sorry, I had a follow-on question, which is the results of the boundary review. Do we know when they are coming in, and do we need to have those on the programme? Should they be on our forward programme? Will it require us to have discussion on that? I just wonder if we ought to have that programmed in somewhere, potentially. And also, Stephen, you mentioned before about the changes to the postal voting. Is there any updates we should put in there for, you mentioned the elections next year, obviously, and any discussions we might need to have leading up to things like changes to postal votes and progress on have we managed to do all the extra requirements the government suddenly put on us?
We have actually finished it anyway. We sent out 29,000 rejections on postal votes. About 60,000 letters in the first place. And so that's 31, 32, whatever it is.
Is the number of postal voters going up then rapidly?
No, it's going down. It's gone down by 29,000. Yeah, it's not part of the meeting, Chairman, but I thought it's an interesting fact.
Some of that potentially because they might have lived the area or sadly passed.
Or just may well have applied at, say, the time of general election for a postal vote.
I'm with you, yeah.
And decided they don't want to renew now. And they can only renew for 3 years now instead of 5. So if they only want to vote at general election, they'd have to renew it again in 3 years' time. So they might as well wait till then.
And again,
we'll be reporting that in general terms anyway, though, won't we?
We'll bring an information item to your next meeting in May, which will follow obviously the conclusion of that review.
Chair, as the item in September is a very hot topic for most of us. I've had noticed more moans about this than anything else among the body. Will we have good advance notice of what is being proposed? So, because I expect there'll be quite a lot of feedback on that one.
Yes, yes, you will.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, thank
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Interesting to hear Scott's suggestion with CGR. I can think of a council not too far away from me that would be interested in that, and having been involved in one with the town council, I could see that such a move would seriously expedite the process, perhaps, and substantially reduce the cost of the county. So, all in all, as this committee does most of the work, and it is my first time on here, but I would be one that would support such a suggestion.
Just a few things. One, I support moving that power to the Constitution and Governance Committee. Nothing against full council. Some of my best friends are members of full council. I myself have been a member of full council for some time. But it seems that otherwise you just have the debate twice, and you need to decide where you want to have it. And I think this is a sensible place to be able to tease those things out. Secondly, and without wishing to contradict Mr. Lake, I think the 3rd of March is the deadline for the local government boundary report. So Councillor Pugsley and I will have the delights of trying to get the Wi-Fi at Dulverton, at Exmoor House, Dulverton, to work so that we can download them in the middle of an Exmoor National Park meeting. Not that we did that last time. And finally, I do wonder on the question of postal votes, whether it might be possible to have a report to this committee at a future date, just outlining what has happened and what the change in numbers have been. I think it would be of interest to members.
Well, I was actually intending to send a note to all councillors, not on exactly what has happened so that they're all fully aware, rather than just members of this committee.
Any other comments, councillors, members? Councillor Johnson.
So what, the decisions of the government's boundary review, just confirming they won't need to require a constitution and governance committee meeting when they are announced.
End of the process. Well, not the end of the process. This part of the process is that it's the last. They're reflecting upon the last public consultation of the process. They will present their final report, which is for basically for us for information only. There's no further recourse for us for public consultation. They're laid before Parliament at a date in the nearby future. And I think we can formally agree to close the meeting, can we? Thank you.